can make that argument successfully. So I don't think he showed up to this party not knowing that the Pact deck was going to be popular and having a bad matchup against the deck. I just can't imagine that being the case. So
agreed.
Like I said, this is one of those spots where I just feel like there's something that I don't know, and I'm eager to find out.
Same. And let's find out, because we get a chance to watch right now, and you can see already, look at that opening hand there for Javier Dominguez. He's got the double Arclight Phoenix with Faithless Looting opener here, Cedric. Oh, baby, this could be explosive. 2 Phoenix in a yard already. And now you can see already a clock. I mean, you know, this is one of those draws where it looks really great, but I mean, he's ready to rumble. He's going to be attacking next turn.
Now, this could be one of those matchups, too, where Javier is basically saying, look, realistically, you have 2 Pacts and 2 Thassa's, 2 Thassa's Oracles. It's not like you have the most redundant combo in the world, and so I can put pressure on you and basically make you have it as fast as possible, and just on a number standpoint, you just may not have it. Now, this Dimir Pact deck does, interact with the opponent. It sees lots of cards, has removal spells, has tutors like Grim Tutor and Wishclaw Talisman, so they can find their combo, but I think the idea here is just, I'm going to try to pressure you as fast as I can and make you have it, and if you don't, life's good.
So he is dangerously close to being able to just go off with these Phoenixes. He needs a 1-drop spell next turn to be able to do the thing.
Yeah, he does play a bevy.
Lack of Manamorphose really does stand out.
It's huge.
You pointed it out, and it's like, dang, that would have been really good here.
Manamorphose not being a historic, at least for right now, who knows if it's coming in the future, but it not being a historic right now, definitely has a huge impact on this deck. I know that once we got the Mystical Archive and they got Faithless Looting and Brainstorm and everything, everyone was excited to go to Izzet Phoenix like right away. But the reality is that it's just not the same deck that it was previously. And you see Javier a little frustrated there that he just drew another land, not a 1-mana spell. So now all he can do is kick back a Faithless Looting and make an Elemental.
It was one further down. There was another Faithless Looting right below that land off the top, and he just needed that because now there's been a Grim Tutor resolved here for Seth Manfield. Javier knows, well, I'm probably dead. And guess what? He's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
Thassa's Oracle, trigger on the stack. Hold on 1 second, says Seth. I've got something I want to do before that trigger resolves. And it's going to involve... Wow, he scooped to it. That was nice. Clicking a lot of
I was thinking the same thing.
I was looking. I'm like, hey, he's got 0 timeouts. And, the rumor around the campfire here is that if you have 1 full timeout, you should be good to get through your library. But 0 timeouts? I don't know. Maybe not so much.
I guess that question remains unanswered for you and I right now, as Javier just conceding there pretty quickly. But, that's the other thing about this deck too, right, is Seth casts a Grim Tutor. And it's like, okay, well, that means you have 1 piece of the puzzle. It's not like they play 4 copies of each combo piece. They can't do that. So in a way, it can be very frustrating where it's like, really, you have 1 of the packs already too? Come on, right? Like, it can be frustrating.
Seriously. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing. Yeah. When your opponent casts Grim Tutor, you're just like, well, you got to have the other half, right? I mean, I'm pretty dead here.
Uh-oh, our friends in Twitch chat, the old pals, they're letting us know that if Oracle Trigger is on the stack, timeouts don't matter because Tainted Pact will just auto resolve and do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Oracle Trigger will resolve and then you'll just win. So it's like Magic Arena just kind of takes over for you.
Oh, because the default would be that the rest of your life... Really? It doesn't just stop you where you're at? Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
That's what I'm learning from our friends in Twitch chat. And as you know, Marshall,
never wrong.
Thank you very much.
At least not yet. You have an uninterrupted streak of being correct. Oh, boy. Already getting awkward here for Dominguez, who looks like he's going to go for the turn 2 expressive iteration with another one in his hand, another 2 of them in his hand. He might just be figuring it's better to just use my mana here to grab a card.
Yeah, because he's so glutted on this card that he's got to cast at least 1 of them, right?
That's right. So he's going to do that, but of course that means that he's only going to get some card selection out of it. Could be worse, though. Looks like he's got Mystical Dispute, a Narset, another pair of those Expressive Iteration, as well as Arclight Phoenix and a Sulphur Falls in hand. What about for Seth? Does he have combo pieces? Not yet?
Doesn't look like it. I mean, not much going on here, right? Seth has more of just an interactive hand. Can do a little digging here with to maybe at some point in the game cast Granted for one of the pieces that he may be missing. But, again, this is part of the appeal of this deck is that, hey, look at me. I'm just playing as a Dimir control deck, kind of like a Dimir midrange deck, and then, oops, you're dead.
Supreme Will, Legion's End, Drown in the Lock. I mean, this deck really has it all. I do see a Soul Guide Lantern there, though, for Seth. So if that Arclight Phoenix has plans on getting into the graveyard and coming back, the Soul Guide Lantern could mess with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Falls is going to hit the battlefield, and it looks like it's going to be Narset Parter of Veils here for Dominguez. Very slow start for him.
Yeah, you got to like this kind of card in this matchup, though. I mean, we're obviously working ourselves towards a bit of a longer game here. It's not going to find any of the creatures, of course, that Javier would like to actually get kind of a clock going. But Narset's card advantage and it's static. Can't imagine it doesn't matter here.
Right. Yeah, it's worst case, right? Is just like, hey, I'm going to get some spells. Back over to Dominguez with active Narset Parter of Veils. He finds another land. He's going to go for Expressive Iteration here before anything.
Still just love that card. Just very, very pumped to be seeing to be watching that card grow over the next year and probably longer than that. It's a really, I think, well-designed card. Expressive Iteration, not overpowered, just good. Just good.
Yeah, that's the sweet spot for sure. It's gold, right? It's they make you work for it a little bit with your mana.
Yep.
Faithless Looting here. The first card selected was the obvious Arclight Phoenix, I suppose, but from Javier's perspective, he's got to pick something else, and it looks like it's going to be a redundant young Pyromancer. He does have a Mystical Dispute in his hand, as well as another Expressive Iteration, the Pyromancer Mountain, a Pathway, and a Sprite Dragon with Faithless Looting in the yard.
So we're starting to find some aggressive elements-ish. Actually get a clock going here, which is good news for Javier. The difficult thing in the sideboard games, too, if you're Javier, is that you just don't have a lot of reactive permission. And I'm, of course, talking about, like, counter spells. Like, he doesn't have a ton of those. His deck, as you mentioned when we were doing the deck breakdown, you're playing Arclight Phoenix. You don't want reactive permission. You want proactive permission. You want to be killing your opponent pretty quickly. So the lack of counter spells, if you compare to something like what Nassif and LSV are playing with their Jeskai control decks, that kind of rears its ugly head here as well too.
All right. Again, players just kind of posturing here. No fireworks just yet, which has got to be bad for Javier. As by this point in the game, I think he was hoping to have some pressure on the life total of Manfield, but Manfield's sitting pretty at 20 life here and is able to just kind of hit his land drops. He played the Soul Guide Lantern, got a little Omen of the Sea going. He's not really in a big rush right now.
Nope.
And that's where you want to be if you're playing a combo deck like that.
Yeah, I mean, underneath no pressure, just kind of hanging out, doing his thing. Feeling pretty good about life, just still sitting at that comfortable 20 life. So, no advantage for me to kind of state at this point, but I would be happier if I was in Seth's seat than Javier's. I'll say that.
Javier declined to use Narset last. This is tough. Yeah, and he does use it here, and he just whiffed. He just completely missed on Narset. That's very difficult in this deck. And I don't know if you caught it there, Chad, but he looked up at the sky and kind of, gave the like, what do I got to do here? Well, he finally found some way to at least start getting the pressure going with a Sprite Dragon. Though it looks like there's going to be a response here from Manfield. He's going to sacrifice the Soul Guide Lantern to get everything out of there.
There could definitely be a Twitter account or an Instagram account or heck, even a TikTok account. Just Javier reacts.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Right?
That's one of my favorite things about Javier is that he's not afraid to show his emotion when the time is right, and it's because we're all, we all feel that. We're all right there riding along with these players, but most of them have been doing this for so long, they just sort of set that aside and stay focused. And to be fair to Javier, he does too, but when it's time to let go, it. You know if he's happy or sad. There's no question.
That's just a free idea out there for somebody. You're welcome. Just use it. You'll become a billionaire or something.
Supreme Will to counter the Young Pyromancer. Oh, no, sorry. To look at the top four cards of the library. Diggy digs.
But is it
so
resolving?
Does this get disputed is a question.
Yeah,
and now Dominguez is going back in the tank, and you can tell he really feels it.
It's, again, what makes this so difficult is that Javier has a very, very, very limited amount of reactive permission, counter magic. It's not like he has a ton of memory lapses and a ton of drown in the locks and a ton of mystical disputes. He's working on very few of those. So every spell that kind of looks pretty good, like that Supreme Will that can find something else, that's going to be attractive. That's going to be an attractive thing to counter that he has to give a lot of thought about, like we just saw him do there. And ultimately, he let that card resolve. Looks like it didn't end up too badly for him, even though he doesn't know that. But he has to think about every single thing, Marshall.
That's right. Here's Legion's End. This is going to take out the Young Pyromancer, and it's also going to give an insight into what is going on Javier's side of the board, as Seth is going to get a chance to look at his hand here.
As if Seth Manfield needed any more of an advantage. Now he knows exactly what's in his opponent's hand, huh? Okay.
Yeah, it's that's the thing. Like, there's cards like that let you look at your opponent's hand, and usually that's kind of considered throwaway text. And probably for a lot of players it might even be. But yeah, boy, you just feel so exposed when it's somebody like Seth who can use that information so effectively against you, and we're going to see it here. He's got Blood Chief's Thirst to take out all the threats as well. It looks like Seth has veered over into Dimir control at this point by the way he's been playing.
For now, yeah.
Okay, this is big, though. This is where Expressive Iteration can really do some work here for Dominguez, as he has options on finding, like 2 spells he could cast this turn, and it looks like he's done so.
He needs to really, really, well, I was going to say, I'm going to take it back. I was going to say he really needs to find an Arclight Phoenix, but there's a Cling to Dust just hanging out over there in Seth's hand.
That's right, and he already had put 1 in the yard, and it got exiled to the Lantern. But yeah, he is in need of a threat, no doubt about it. Awkward.
A bit.
Yeah, so he just went for the Brainstorm, and it looks like he's Brainstorm locked a bit here, as he's just going to go for Opt to put that on the bottom. And then that forces him to draw the land, which he must have wanted. Now he can go for Faithless Looting and kind of start churning through this library. He finds a Sprite Dragon. Plays land.
That's a lot of moving of material with nothing effective happening.
Yeah. Yeah, see, they're supposed to be an Arclight Phoenix, right? I mean, that's the thing, right? He's supposed to get a free creature while doing that stuff. That's what makes this deck a thing. And if you're not, it's what you said. You're just sort of moving cards around, but nothing's really happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's tough. Javier prioritizing keeping up Mystical Dispute as well. This protects him from getting comboed out. At least currently.
Yeah. Seth, he picked up a copy of Tainted Pact, so he's, I'll say he's halfway home.
He's halfway there. Cling to Dust really doing work on Javier's graveyard as well, taking out flashback spells like Faithless Looting here.
Okay. I was curious, because we just saw Narset kind of do its thing, preventing Seth from drawing a card. Narset Static has gotten many. I don't know if it got Seth there in that instance, because he did main phase that Cling to Dust instead of maybe on Javier's upkeep, which would have gotten him a card. So Again, not positive if that was a mistake or not by Seth or if that was intentional. I think it would be foolish of me to say that Seth made a mistake because that's so rare.
No, I think he made a mistake.
Okay, fine. I'll give it
I think you called it. I think that this officially makes it so that you're better than Seth Manfield now because you saw it and he didn't. And yeah, book it.
Cool.
Good job,
so
Seth.
does that make me a Pro Tour champion, a world champion, Hall of Famer?
Hall of Famer, multiple GPs.
Heck yeah. Feels good.
There really isn't anything you haven't done in the game at this point.
Feels good.
By the way, we got a little fight here. Drown on the Lock. Narset. Let's see what happened. And here it is. Finally, the precious Mystical Dispute comes out.
Let's see what we find now. After a little beatdown. Well, hey, look. It's a clock. It's a real clock.
It really is. I mean, it goes quickly. You see the Ox of Agonis. There's a nice reload. There's a Narset. Does it get activated? Not now. Ooh, Pact of Negation.
I guess this is one of those times where it feels like you could grant it for something that matters if we still have Fae of Wishes in hand, which it looks like he does.
Yeah, he does.
It's funny because granted just for like a removal spell, if there's one hanging out in the sideboard would be fine. Mm-hmm. Just get that 4/4 off the battlefield and let's just keep grinding this game out.
Kind of interesting. We did see granted for Pact of Negation before, but Seth already has one in hand here. So
mm-hmm.
Looks like he opted to get a second copy of Tainted Pact.
Okay, so this is the I'm gonna go get Thassa's Oracle right now.
Right.
And then I have Pact Oracle. I have Pact Oracle and Pact Negation in hand, and you have things that are worse than that.
Wow. Oh my. Wow. Narset Parter Veils whiffs again for Dominguez. He draws Crackling Drake, which is pretty awkward here too, because while a nice threat and a good value card, he really needs to use his turn to get Ox of Agonis on the battlefield, which means he's just going to have to send away the Crackling Drake. He finds Opt and Brainstorm.
And I think here's the other bad news, by the way. Even if Javier were to find a card like Mystical Dispute, Seth could pay.
Right.
Let alone Pact Negation it. Right? So any cantrip that needs to be done here. I'm not even sure what the best card to find is. I'm not even convinced there. Yeah, because there's a dispute right now. That card's inconsequential.
Yep. It just feels like Javier could not get enough pressure quickly enough, and he's given Seth too much time.
Yeah.
Right. We mentioned that, Seth already was kind of on cruise control with getting set up, managing the board, making sure that he wasn't under any real pressure, managing the graveyard. Then he got a chance to see Javier's hand. So for a few turns there, Seth really knew that he wasn't facing anything important. And he's still at a 16 life right now. Like, he is in really good shape. And he's got the combo set up as well with Counterspell backup. And cards like Mystical Dispute, I mean, they barely make the cut in this Arclight Phoenix deck. Javier snuck 2 of them in the main, but that's just a nod to this matchup, probably. Not cards that he would prefer to have in a deck like this. And they're not going to be enough given the time frame.
Totally agree. We're going to see an attack from the Sprite Dragon to bring Seth down to 8, but this one should be a wrap here in just a moment. Scrabbling Claws, just another good draw step in case Arclight Phoenix ever did come up, but it didn't, and we should be all set in a moment.
That's right, and all he can really do here is fire off the card that he's kept in his hand for so long, a Mystical Dispute. He got rid of one earlier, got another one. It just isn't going to do enough because, as you mentioned, Seth can just pay. He doesn't even have to bother with the counterspell at this point. He can just say, sure, I'll just pay for it. Trigger on the stack, Tainted Pact on the stack. We saw this in the first game, and this is going to be Seth Manfield churning through his library. By the time that trigger resolves, the devotion will be much higher than what's in the library, which will be nothing, and we will have a match going to Seth Manfield, big win for him to put a little distance between himself and Javier, kind of in that upper part of the standings.
Yeah, this is exactly what I meant too. This was a clearly a big match for both players, undeniably, for everything that's kind of on the line here for Worlds, and you can go on and on about that. But the difference between being ahead of a person by 2 points as opposed to being ahead of a person by 1 point, especially when you have control over that, is huge. And I think that this matchup was a good one for Seth. These games were, I'm not going to call them easy, but they were pretty straightforward. And so winning the matches that you're supposed to win in a setting like this is instrumental to having success. And that's exactly what Seth Manfield just did.
That's right. He went through his whole library, Thassa's Oracle ready to resolve, and Javier Dominguez has to scoop him up. You got to feel for Javi. It just didn't go his way. He wasn't able to apply enough pressure. Then when he finally got some threats, Seth had the answers. Then it really had a couple of small, he whiffed on Narset twice. How often does that happen with this deck that's primarily spells? That can't be a common occurrence at all. And it just all added up to a loss for him, with Seth Manfield, again, widening that gap. When you're playing against the players who you're directly up against in that part of the bracket, a win against them just sets you apart. And that's what Seth was able to do here.
Yeah, it's a really, really, really big win for Seth. You can see Javier's frustration, of course. He does kind of wear his emotions on his sleeve, which is one of the things that you and I and many do enjoy about him. But you can see the frustration, the missing with the Narcissus that you mentioned. And ultimately, I'm just not convinced personally. I'm not sure that's a very good matchup for his deck. It didn't feel like it kind of leading into the match, and the game certainly didn't play in any way that felt like he was going to be able to get that one. And it also didn't feel like a thing where Seth got kind of lucky along the way. Seth kind of got to do his thing. Javier kind of got to do his thing. And we saw how the games unfolded, which were pretty easily in Manfield's favor. So Seth now 2 points ahead of Javier in this race to the World Championships. A huge, huge, huge victory there for Seth.
Yeah, from a theory crafting standpoint, that's when you're too lazy to actually play the playtest games.
Of course.
It doesn't seem to line up, right? It's so low on disruption, with only 2 soft counters main, and really you can't push it much further than that and still have a functional deck.
Yep.
So then it turns it to, so I'm trying to race. You're telling me that the matchup the way I win this is I'm just fast enough to beat the pack deck before it can beat me. And it's I don't know, Arclight Phoenix and that type of deck can apply a lot of pressure, and the way that it applies it doesn't line up particularly well, but it can pile on quite a bit. But I think if I'm in the pack player's seat and my opponent's turn 2, and you're okay, don't do it to me. And they're Young Pyromancer. And you're oh, thank God,
Sure.
I'm not dying to that thing for 5 turns, and they don't need that much time to get the job done. And that's what we saw. I mean, if you aren't going to present a balanced approach of threats plus disruption, the pack deck's going to outlast you. And, we've watched all the decks that have played against it today try to thread that line.
Yeah, and unsuccessfully, I would say, for the most part. So if you're looking for a historic deck, I don't know if the better version is Grixis versus Dimir. I'm not sure anyone knows that definitively at this stage, but I'd be casting Tainted Pact and Thassa's Oracle for as long as the powers that be would let me.
Yeah, that's what I would be doing too. And again, it has to be said that Tainted Pact has to be the most impactful of those Mystical Archive cards that we've had thus far, right? I mean, this one is a game changer.
Can't say we saw that one coming with Brainstorm and Faithless Looting and a bunch of other cards hiding out in that Mystical Archive. Tainted Pact kind of just seemed like a random one that was included, but looks like maybe a little bit more than random. It's a format breaker. It's not a 4 of, because it really can't be, but it definitely is a format breaker. And I am loath to say that this is the best deck in Historic, but I'm starting to get on board. I'm starting to get on board here, and I think we're going to be taking a short break and getting ready for a non-Tainted Pact match, Marshall?
It's possible. Let's just say it's possible. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we will reveal our final match of the day. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to coverage here. Marshall Sutcliffe with Cedric Phillips. We've got another match to bring you before we call it a day here on Saturday. We are going to be back again tomorrow, by the way, same time. And we've even got 7 rounds to cover tomorrow, so you won't want to miss it. But today we've got historic, one more round to go. Let's take a look at our matchup. It's Kenji Egashira, and he's playing, did he not get the memo? He's playing Jund Sacrifice. Look at this. There's no weird bordered cards, right? Like, Kenji, what happened? Did you? He's like, what's the mystical archive? Never even heard of it. He's just running good old Jund Sacrifice here, said.
Yeah, I got nothing for you here, Marshall. I don't know why.
Would you rather play Tainted Pact or Priest of Forgotten Gods? You can pay 1 and a black. I'll let you choose. You know, it's like.
Well, clearly Kenji decided to go with this. I mean, the deck is powerful. Cat, Oven, Mayhem Devil. Once it's all online, Collected Company, of course, to tie the room together. I have to imagine, if I had to guess, that these Claim the Firstborns weren't particularly good this weekend, like they have been, like for the past year.
For Claim the Firstborn, Kenji, please.
That's just one human's opinion. That's all.
Can you steal an Oracle? I guess not if you're dead. Sure. His opponent on the other side is Luis Salvatto, who's running the same deck that we saw in the hands of Javier Dominguez last round. Izzet Phoenix. And now all of a sudden you can kind of see how this deck could have a place in a metagame that didn't deal with the other part. Yeah, you can steal Pack Rat with it. I like that. Sure. We found a target. We found us a target. But yeah, relatively fair Izzet Phoenix looks a lot better here.
Yes, I would like to think so. And if we're going to make fun of Claim the Firstborn a little more, not a lot of targets here either. Arclight Phoenix, Crackling Drake, Storming Entity, those aren't the juicy of targets. You can get yourself a nice little Sprite Dragon or a Young Pyromancer or an Elemental, I suppose, from Young Pyromancer, but Claim the Firstborn may be getting sideboarded out here in the games that we do watch unfold here. This is a very fair on fair matchup, and when we do lean fair like this, I oftentimes love these Jund Sacrifice decks in spots like this. So I'm leaning Kenji if I had to pick somebody, which I do.
I'm leaning Kenji as well. I mean, look, we're still talking about a scenario where if there's a Mayhem Devil active on the battlefield, it's going to be very difficult for Salvatto to stick a threat that actually stays, right? I mean, Arclight Phoenix only has 2 toughness, so you can kill that pretty easily. And yeah, they can recur it a certain number of times, but usually it's one more time, right? Yeah. The deck doesn't get to just do it over and over and over. Young Pyromancer is a great, easy thing to get rid of again. If we see Mayhem Devil stick on the battlefield, it's going to do some serious damage to the other side. And then if you take away the threats from Salvatto, he's got a lot of air. Right? It's just a lot of like cantripping, card drawing, just things that let you cast instants or sorceries so that you can get back the Phoenix. And that means that, it's going to be tough. Now, one other thing, by the way, Cedric, coming in here is, as far as ranking goes for these two players in Rivals, Kenji's in 19th currently coming in, and Salvatto's in 16th. But these are important numbers because by the end of the season, so not the end of this weekend, but the last league weekend, 5th through 20th are going to qualify for the MPL gauntlet. And these players are right on that cusp and they're probably looking to distance themselves a bit, from that 20th spot. But particularly in Kenji's case, he's in 19th. Like, he's right on that edge, and qualifying for the postseason would be a big game for him. So, another win here, finish strong on the weekend, he could put himself in a good spot.
Totally agree. And again, this is just day number 1 of competition. We got more coming soon. Tomorrow, 7 very, very important rounds for all of these players. So I know we're closing out day 1 with kind of a weird little matchup here, but it's just the end of one day before we get to an extremely important second one.
That's right. 33 points and 34 points for our 2 players. And take a look at the opening hand here. Oh, no.
Hey, in previous historic, I'm talking Snapkeep.
Oh,
we're not
no
even
kidding.
Thinking about it.
Oh. And it's tough because he has, what has to be his best card in the matchup here with the Mayhem Devil as well. And it's not like he has 0 targets for claim. It just doesn't seem optimized here.
Yeah.
He kept it.
That hand 4 months ago, we're just like, all right, Kenji's up a game.
Right.
Has claim for the first couple of threats, sack it to Woe Strider, yada, yada, yada. Now there's Priest of Forgotten Gods to go along with the claim the firstborn. How lucky.
Right.
But instead, the Mystical Archive has made things a different world.
It really has. Faithless Looting is going to kick off the festivities here for Salvatto, it looks like. And boy, he'd love to see an Arclight Phoenix here. Ugh. He doesn't. Oh, hey, there's this Bright Dragon. This does get kind of interesting because of the few targets for Claim the Firstborn, that is actually one of them. In fact, it looks like Salvatto's going to put it in the graveyard.
You know how he feels about that.
Having none of that Claim the Firstborn nonsense.
We're going to have a pretty strong reliance here on Crackling Drake, which, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, a nice target for Pillar of Flame here as well. Priest of Forgotten Gods hits the battlefield on turn 2 here for Kenji. And that means that Salvatto says, okay, we're going to send that thing to the exile zone. Thank you very much. And meanwhile, doesn't have a lot else going on. Kind of a lot riding on Crackling Drake at this point.
Yep. But Crackling Drake does get pretty big pretty quickly, cantrips, and kills opponents faster than it may initially appear. You can say the same thing about Dreadhorde Butcher as well.
Mm-hmm. Kenji with an option to go for the Devil, or the Butcher decides, look, I'm not going to be able to trigger this Devil necessarily very many times. There's no targets for it. But if I get the Dreadhorde Butcher going, the earlier you get it down, the better it is. So he's going to cast it on turn 3 here, get in, and it's already got a counter. Looks like it's going to get pillared. Oh, interesting. So Salvatto has to decide between doing Faithless Looting plus Pillar of Flame and then maybe hitting an Arclight Phoenix or something, which he hit, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Or he could cast Crackling Drake, but it looks like he's going to discard. He's going to cast Faithless Looting, the third one, and then cast Pillar of Flame. Now, he does not have the ability to cast another spell here, though, right? So he's not going to get the Arclight Phoenix back right now.
Yeah, and again, you can see the world of difference between the modern version of this deck that I think folks that played that format are extremely familiar with from a couple of years ago, as opposed to the historic version of this deck now with the lack of cards like Thing in the Ice, the lack of cards like Manamorphose, which are incredibly powerful cards that really kind of kept and tied the room together. Those cards aren't available here. And it's not like Sprite Dragon's a bad card or anything, but Thing in the Ice and Manamorphose were key cards for this strategy that just Salvatto and Dominguez and everybody just don't have access to. So doesn't mean the deck is poor. It just means it's different than it was before.
And he's going to have a lot riding on that expressive iteration. Because if he hits anything off of it, then he can Faithless Looting that same turn and get back the Phoenix. But this is what you get back, right? You know, when we were talking about the modern version of the deck, the expressive iteration didn't exist yet. Mm-hmm. And this is a spell that actually can be 3 spells in one card, right? Like if you've got 4 mana, you can cast expressive iteration, exile a 1-drop, put a 1-drop in your hand, cast them both, and then you've met the requirement. And that's sweet. I mean, that's a reason to build the deck, probably.
Agreed.
But boy, Manamorphose, yeah. You mentioned it before, and I'm like, oh yeah, they don't have that.
No.
At first I thought, is that a historic? No, it's not. And it's like, whoa, you see, when you watch this game, you know, we watched one game, and I'm like, this deck wants Manamorphose real bad.
Yeah.
Because they can cast 2 spells, no problem. Like, it's just the third can get difficult. And again, some gamesmanship here from both of our players. Really impressive stuff. I mean, Kenji knows that Claim the Firstborn's just not going to hit anything. From the get-go, Luis Salvatto's like, you are not going to get a target for it. He's just discarding those Sprite Dragons. And so Kenji's like, if the best I'm going to do is be able to give my Mayhem Devil haste with it, then I'll do that. And so he casted on that to get in. No blocks from Salvatto, because even if he were to block one of the 2 creatures, you know, it's just a simple sacrifice and a ping to get that Drake off the battlefield.
Well, we got a little something cooking now. Expressive iteration. Now we'll do some brainstorming. Put a couple of cards back. Let's see. 3. How much mana available? 2. So we could play it. We can play a land. Now we can looting. Get this Phoenix in the graveyard. Okay, we're rocking and a rolling. Barbara Ann.
So he's going to get 2 Phoenix now?
Yeah, it should be 2.
Yeah, there's the other one. So 2 Phoenix on the battlefield plus 8 power. That's 14 coming across. He's got to be careful, though. If he only leaves one Arclight Phoenix back, yeah, he's going to leave both. It's not too hard for that thing to just be dead.
Yep. Playing a little bit cautious, basically saying, you know what? These Phoenixes can block. I can trade with the Mayhem Devil and trade with the Woe Strider. And then I've got multiple copies of Faithless Looting in the graveyard, so that's one spell. Shock is the second spell. Probably going to find a third spell if I do flashback Faithless Looting. So the chances of me being able to get Arclight Phoenixes back from the graveyard next turn appear to be pretty high. So let's not get too reckless, is what Salvatto's thinking.
That's right. So he's going to leave both of the Phoenixes at home. Hit for 8. He's got that lethal attack. Probably numerous ways next turn. Probably the Drake itself is just lethal. Definitely Drake plus a Phoenix is lethal. In fact, actually, yeah. Crackling Drake just is lethal with Shock. So Kenji's got a lot of work to do here. He's under some serious pressure. He's going to start by upkeep scrying with Woe Strider sacking the Goat. This is going to at least attempt to give him a chance to get rid of one of the Phoenix, but he's got a lot of work to do here. Finds another Woe Strider.
Mm-hmm.
This is not working out well for Kenji.
It's not.
Feel like he's dead?
I mean, I just don't know what the plan is.
Right.
You know, and the other thing that's a little bit difficult about this too. So I know that I think both of you and I both said, you know, we kind of like Kenji in this spot. The thing that's difficult here is his draw wasn't bad. You know, he went Priest, Butcher, Strider, Devil. Devil hasn't died. If I told you 4 months ago that Mayhem Devil was played on turn 4 and it didn't die, you'd probably say, okay, so Mayhem Devil player won. And right now I have to go like, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different world.
It really is. Yeah. The one big turn here for Salvatto was great. And if Kenji just stays tapped out here, then that Drake just gets to kill him.
Well, he could whiff.
He has Shock, though.
Oh, yeah, sure. Never mind. Yep, you win this round, Marshall.
Yeah, it's just GG. And Kenji doesn't know about it.
Round. Yeah, okay. I was like, maybe he just draws all lands with the Faithless Lootings. That's not a thing. That doesn't matter.
And there we go. Once that Shock hits the bin, there's 10. It's exactly lethal. And Kenji's got his work cut out for him here. You can see he's thinking back, was there anything I could have done? You know, he did have, I think he put together enough damage to actually have killed the Drake rather than the 2 Arclight Phoenix. Maybe he's thinking that first upkeep ping when he scried should have gone to the Drake and because he needed to be able to kill it or something along those lines. Really tough spot there.
So I'm going deep into my bag of tricks here. This Izzet Phoenix deck that looked quite poor against the Tainted Pact strategy. Maybe this was brought for this particular weekend to beat all of the non-Tainted Pact decks. Do you think we're in that realm?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're gonna play Jeskai Control that is geared to beat Tainted Pact. Cool, I'm gonna farm you for doing that. You're gonna I don't think anyone saw this coming, but you're gonna play Jund Sacrifice.
Right.
Well, none of my creatures are claimable. You know, like maybe that was the plan here from Salvatto, Dominguez, and other Izzet Phoenix players. And if so, that's viable. We've seen that in many tournaments over the course of Magic's history. Everyone's going to play A, so everyone else is going to play B, so we're going to play C. We've seen that before.
Oh, totally. That's a very common strategy. If people feel confident about where the metagame's going to sit, they will do that. Now, I don't know how good you'd feel about it if you knew that the metagame was going to be skewed this heavily, right? Like, 50% or whatever. Yeah. That might make you rethink that. But if you're thinking like, okay, a third of the field is going to be Tainted Pact, somewhere around a third is gonna try to attack that with maybe a control deck like Jeskai. Yeah, sure. That seems like a good spot to fire up one of these decks.
I agree.
Meow. So Kenji has an opener with triple Cauldron Familiar and a Woe Strider. Wow. Oh, and this is on a mulligan. So one cat's going to get binned here. Boy, give him that oven one time and he can be in business. Let's see what's going on the bottom part of the screen here. Luis Salvatto. He's got Shock, Double Iteration, Sulphur Falls, Brainstorm Island. So not a whole lot just yet here for him either. Kenji finds a land.
Well, it's not the fastest clock in the world, but you got to get started. You got to get started somewhere.
It is not.
Oh, we got to just shock one.
Speaking of getting started
Oh,
somewhere,
yeah.
shock the cat here, says Luis Salvatto.
All right.
We'll just reduce that clock in half. Ooh, and there's an abrade in case there is an oven coming for Kenji. Now there's an answer for it for Salvatto.
All parties sending messages here. Shocking cats.
Yes.
What's going on? What's really going on here?
There's the Woe Strider. That'll probably eat another shock here. But really for Salvatto, this is the type of hand that, he's got so much stored energy, if you will, right? It's not doing a whole lot on its own, but I mean, he now has triple expressive iteration. Those are all going to be 2-for-1s. Like, he wants to get these shocks out of his hand just because he knows he's going to be doing stuff with his mana, for the next 3 to 4 turns that is going to require him to tap out pretty consistently.
You see Kenji's hand right now. He's got nothing. He's got lands. He's got Gigantha over there in the companion zone, a Cauldron Familiar in the graveyard. And so right now, this shock is on the stack. This shock is in response to Woe Strider's trigger for the Go token. So now Kenji has to make the decision of if he actually wants to sacrifice this other Cauldron Familiar to get a scry. It looks like the answer is yes. So when the dust settles, his battlefield is going to be left with an 0-1.
So he actually found it. It's Witch's Oven.
Well,
is it too late? Is it won't have anything to set, drawing that card for the turn? Is that what you want? With 2 cats in the yard, you got to feel like there's some merit to it, right? Like that is a way to get going at some point. Our knowledge tells us that there's an abrade there, but Kenji doesn't know about it. Ooh, Faithless Looting into double Phoenix. This one is falling apart very quickly here for Kenji. And he gives a nod there when he saw the 2 Phoenixes go into the yard. This turn is going to be basically nothing. He can pay Gigantha. You can get the oven on the battlefield.
Well, we can get it back now.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because he just drew a 1 mana spell, which is Salvatto needed. He needed to either run into one with expressive iteration or just draw one, and he drew Faithless Looting, so he should be clear for takeoff now.
Boy, when you say that, it was anger. It was only 1. How sad.
This is nice. This is a real nice turn now. Found another Arclight Phoenix. So now you do a little brainstorming action. One of the cards you're going to put back is Phoenix. The other one is just some garbage that you don't care about.
Does he just fire off Faithless Looting as the 3rd spell? That gets him 2. Oh wow, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because now you're looting. Well, it doesn't matter how you do it. Like you're looting the 3rd Phoenix into the graveyard. So that's 1. Spiral Canal can be 2. Now 3 Phoenixes are coming back, and let the beatdowns commence.
And look at Kenji. He gave a golf clap. He said, "You know what, bud? You did it. You got triple Arclight Phoenix coming in here. And that's going to be really, really tough to deal with." And Kenji has that look on his face like, yeah, I think you might have me here, Luis Salvatto, because this is impressive. I mean, this is, showing us the top end of what this deck can do. And, right now, Luis Salvatto is putting a beatdown on Kenji. I mean, this has gotten ugly.
Yeah, I was going to say the best draw step here for Kenji is Collected Company. It would ended up being a copy of Dreadhorde Butcher. And you know what? Might as well get in there. Teach him a lesson. I'm all for it.
I like it. Kenji, never stop attacking Kenji. You got this. In the meantime, he's pretty much dead as Luis Salvatto calmly dismantles the board while attacking for 9 last turn, 9 this turn. He's almost got lethal. He has a shock as well. Get Kenji down to just 1.
Make it look a little too easy here.
Yeah. As the Arclight Phoenix deck tends to do when it hits 3 of them or even 2 of them, right? It really does show you like why it's worth it to go for this.
Yeah, I mean, the appeal of this is it makes total sense why people are trying this in Historic. Look, the previous iteration of this deck in Modern, as I've mentioned a couple times, was incredibly, incredibly powerful. Format defining. And you already have Arclight Phoenix. You get access to Brainstorm, which was not available in Modern. You get access to Faithless Looting, which was available in Modern for a time. And you say, okay, this all kind of makes sense. As I'm going to pause myself here, I think.
He hit Coco, but it's probably too late.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like what we said at the beginning of the match said. I mean, Kenji, when faced with a decision between playing Tainted Pact or Priest of Forgotten God, said, I'm all in on the Priest. We're doing it.
Yeah,
2020 forever.
I want to be all in on the Pact.
And he has been, and he's paying the price here.
Yeah. I want to be all in on the Pact. But to finish my thought very quickly, I can understand why people are going this route on trying to make Arclight Phoenix decks happen. Salvatto picking up a victory here and a little bit of a fist pump in what appears to be a better matchup than maybe you and I even may have thought. But ultimately, I get why people